Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought, I should have said this? Or, why did I let them get to me? Maybe it was a rude cashier, a sarcastic neighbor, or even someone in your own family who pushed your buttons again. And instead of responding in a way that felt right, you just stood there, heart racing, later replaying the moment in your head like a broken record. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. As we get older, you'd think people would treat us with more respect. After all, we've seen more, lived more, and often we've given more than we've received. But the truth is, some people never grow out of their bad behavior. They interrupt, they belittle, they roll their eyes, and worst of all, they expect us to react. But here's the secret: they don't expect. When you don't react, when you stay calm, composed, and hit back, not with anger, but with class, they don't know what to do. You take away their power. And that's what this video is all about. Today we're going to talk about how to deal with rude people in a way that protects your peace, preserves your dignity, and makes them rethink ever disrespecting you again. No yelling, no losing control, just simple, powerful comebacks that work. Especially for those of us who've lived long enough to know that silence can be stronger than shouting. Let's start with something that changed my life the moment I started using it. It's a line so simple yet so powerful that the first time you say it, you'll feel like you've just stepped into a different version of yourself. One that doesn't explain, doesn't apologize, and certainly doesn't beg for approval. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. Let that sink in for a moment. Because the next time someone tries to tear you down with a judgmental comment about your lifestyle, your appearance, your choices, or even your dreams, that one sentence can shut them down completely. And the best part, it's calm. It's measured. It's pure power without raising your voice. I remember sharing a new idea I was excited about with an old friend. Let's call him Brad. Brad had a habit of scoffing at anything that didn't fit his idea of what life should look like. When I told him about the project I'd been working on for weeks, he chuckled and said, "Really? At your age? That's a waste of time." The old me would have argued, explained, tried to win his approval. But I just looked at him and said, "You're entitled to your opinion, Brad, and I'm entitled to ignore it." Then I smiled, changed the subject, and moved on. He didn't say another word. You see, people like Brad don't talk down to you because they care. They do it because they want control. They want you to need their validation. But the moment you show them that you don't, the moment you make it clear that their opinion is irrelevant to your life, they lose the game. Now let's say you're in a group setting. Maybe it's a family dinner or a community meeting, and there's someone, maybe it's your cousin Steve, who always tries to sound clever by putting others down. You're speaking, and he interrupts with a smug comment like, "Oh, sure, because you're such an expert. Here's what you do. You don't raise your voice. You don't get flustered. You just smile and say, 'Steve, if I had $1 for every smart thing you've said, I'd be broke.' It's quick. It's sharp. And it flips the spotlight back on him without making you look bitter. In fact, it makes you look confident. You didn't need to insult him directly. You just made it clear that he's all talk, no substance. One time I used this line at a neighborhood committee meeting, and the whole room went quiet. Someone even laughed into their coffee. And Steve, he sat there shifting in his seat, speechless. He didn't interrupt me again. Not that day, not ever. What you'll notice is that the people who dish out the most criticism are rarely doing better than you. They just talk louder. And that loudness, it's usually a mask for insecurity. So when you respond not with anger, but with clarity, they don't know how to handle it. Let me share one more. There's a line I keep in my back pocket for those moments when someone's behavior goes beyond sarcasm into outright disrespect. You know the type. They talk over you, dismiss your ideas, treat you like your experience or thoughts don't matter. And they do it not once, but every time they see you. When that happens, I look them straight in the eye and say, I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. It's not a jab. It's a declaration. You're telling them, I see what you're doing, and I refuse to play along. And then you walk away. You don't stay to see their reaction. You don't wait for an apology. You just protect your peace and move forward. It's powerful because most rude people feed off reaction. When you don't give it to them, it's like cutting off their oxygen. You shift the power back to yourself, and they feel it. These moments aren't just about standing up to others. They're about standing up for yourself, for your peace, your time, your energy, things that are too precious to waste on people who don't treat them with care. And here's something important to remember. Just because someone is family or a longtime friend or someone you've worked with for years doesn't mean they get a free pass to disrespect you. Boundaries are not age-restricted. If anything, we've earned the right to draw them more clearly than ever. So, next time someone tries to talk over you, dismiss your ideas, or make you feel small, don't match their disrespect. Rise above it with words that are calm, clear, and impossible to argue with. Because respect isn't something we demand by raising our voices. It's something we claim by refusing to be pulled down by people who never deserved our energy in the first place. Let's keep going. There's another moment I want to share with you, one where someone thought they had the upper hand and how just one sentence turned everything around. It happened during a morning meeting a few years back. I was sharing a suggestion to streamline a process, something simple, helpful, nothing controversial. But there was this one person, Chad, a coworker who never missed a chance to throw shade. He interrupted me mid-sentence with that smirk of his and said, "Yeah, because you're the expert, right?" Now, years ago, that would have ruined my day. I might have gone home and replayed it in my head, wondering if I should have spoken up or stayed quiet. But that day I didn't flinch. I just leaned back, looked at Chad and said calmly, "I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even sound annoyed. Just calm, clear, and finished. Then I turned back to the group and kept talking. The room fell silent. Chad was stunned. He shifted in his chair, opened his mouth like he wanted to say something but didn't. He knew continuing would only prove me right. That was the last time he ever tried that with me, and that's something I want you to carry with you. You don't need to win the argument. You just need to end it with grace, with clarity, with a sentence that shuts the door before they even know what hit them. And when it comes to people who believe that being rude is a strength, who confuse arrogance with confidence, there's another line that works like a mirror. It doesn't just deflect the insult, it reflects it right back. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. I used that one with a man named Steve. We worked together for a while, and to be honest, he thought he was smarter than everyone else. Every time someone made a mistake, he'd roll his eyes. If anyone shared an idea, he'd cut them off. He thought that if he acted superior, no one would question him. One day, he snapped at a team member during a presentation. Something cruel, something that made everyone uncomfortable. The room went quiet, waiting for someone to speak up. So I did. I looked at Steve and said, "Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life." I didn't follow it up with a lecture. I didn't try to embarrass him. I just said the truth and let it sit. And it worked. Steve tried to play it off, but the damage was done. You could see it in his eyes. He knew that line cut through all the noise and struck something deeper. Because deep down, even the rudest people know when they've gone too far. They just hope no one calls them on it. You might be wondering, why do these short, calm responses work so well? Because rude people expect drama. They expect a fight. But when you stay cool, you flip the script. You show them that you are not someone to be toyed with, that you've lived long enough to know the value of your peace, and you're not giving it away just because someone else has a bad attitude. And the best part, you don't just look strong, you feel strong. Every time you refuse to engage in a fight that's not worth your energy, you build a little more self-respect. You walk away a little taller. You start to realize just how many battles were never yours to begin with. Now, there's another moment I want to share, one that shows how powerful it can be to end a conversation before it even begins. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is that you're done talking. Let me tell you what happened. It was during another meeting. Yes, a lot happens in meetings. I had just started presenting a new idea when Chad, you remember him, cut in with another sarcastic comment. This time, he said, "Or we could just do it the right way instead of wasting time." You could feel the tension. Everyone was watching, waiting to see if I'd bite. But I didn't. I looked right at him and said, "This conversation was over before it even started." Then I turned back to my notes and kept going. That one sentence shut the door completely. Chad sat back, visibly thrown off. He didn't interrupt again. You see, that line is like a shield. It tells the person that they don't even qualify for your attention, that their behavior is so off base, you're not wasting one more breath on it. And that, my friend, is how you win. You don't win by shouting louder. You don't win by proving them wrong. You win by making it clear. Their words are irrelevant, and your peace is non-negotiable. We're not in high school anymore. We don't need to clap back or go tit for tat. What we need, what we've earned, is the right to walk through life with dignity. And sometimes that dignity is found not in what you say, but in what you don't say. In knowing that your silence paired with the right words speaks louder than any insult. I'll be honest, this isn't always easy, especially when the person being rude is someone close to you. Maybe it's a family member who thinks they can say whatever they want just because you're related. Maybe it's an old friend who's been passive-aggressive for years, but you never had the right words to stop it. Well, now you do, because it's not about shutting people down for the sake of it. It's about standing up for yourself with calm, controlled strength. And the more you do it, the more you realize you don't need to tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. True peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from self-respect. And we're just getting started. There's one more thing I want to share with you. Something a little playful, but razor sharp. The kind of comeback that makes a rude person laugh nervously while realizing they just got outclassed in the kindest way possible. It was a small get-together, just a few friends, some light snacks, and conversation floating around the room like an easy breeze. That is until Linda, yes, we'll call her Linda, decided to turn the air a little colder. She had this habit, you see, always needing to say something just sharp enough to sting, but said in a way that made you second-guess your own reaction. I was sharing a story, nothing special, just a light moment about how I finally fixed the squeaky back door after months of putting it off, and right on cue, Linda chuckled and said, "Well, wow, look at you actually doing something right for once." The room froze for a second. A few folks smiled awkwardly. Some looked down at their tea, but I didn't miss a beat. I looked right at her, smiled gently, and said, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." It was soft, almost kind, but it cut straight to the truth. Her smile faded, just a flicker. She waved it off with a laugh, but everyone saw it, and no one said another rude thing for the rest of the evening. That line, it's gold, because it flips their insult into a mirror. They thought they were clever, but now they're the one under the spotlight. And here's the brilliance. You didn't call them names. You didn't lose your temper. You just made it clear they were embarrassing themselves, not you. I want you to think about that. How many times in your life have you let someone else's words dictate your mood for the rest of the day, maybe even the rest of the week? And how much of that weight did you carry just because you didn't have the words to hand it back? That's what we're doing here. We're learning not just how to protect ourselves, but how to release the pressure. Because here's the thing, rude people don't usually see themselves as rude. They think they're funny, honest, or just telling it like it is. But the moment you hold up a mirror with words that reveal their behavior for what it is, They begin to squirm. Not because you embarrass them, but because they've finally seen themselves the way others do. And you can do this without ever sounding bitter, without turning cold. You don't need to match their energy. You need to redirect it like water slipping around a rock. You stay in flow, but you wear them down every time you don't react the way they expect. You know, after 60, we've learned a lot about people, about what's worth our energy and what's not. But sometimes we forget that we still have power in our presence, that our words chosen wisely can shape how people treat us not just once, but every time they see us again. So when someone makes a snide remark at a family gathering or a neighbor slips in that not-so-subtle dig about your garden or your plans, remember you've got choices. You can absorb it, stew in it, carry it, or you can gently hand it back with something like, "Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately." It's funny, isn't it, that a line so simple can change the whole dynamic. But that's what happens when you stop giving people power they never earned in the first place. That line in particular has saved me so many hours of needless stress because you're not engaging. You're not defending. You're telling them quite clearly that their opinion won't be living rentrée in your mind today. I remember using it at a family reunion. An older cousin of mine, someone who always found something to criticize, looked me up and down and said, "Still chasing that dream of yours? When are you going to get serious about life?" I smiled and said, "I appreciate the comment. It's already erased from my mind." And then I moved on to the dessert table, quite happily, I might add. What happened next? Nothing. Because what can they say to that? You didn't fight them. You didn't feed their need for control. You dismissed the comment and moved on without missing a beat. That's elegance. That's maturity. That's strength. So let me ask you something and really think about this. What would your days feel like if you didn't carry the weight of other people's poor behavior? What would your evenings feel like if your peace of mind wasn't shaken by every offhand comment? What would your relationships look like if you chose boundaries over bitterness? That's what these phrases give you. Not just comebacks, but clarity. A clear boundary that says, "I hear you, I see you, but I will not carry you with me." And here's what's even better. When you start using these lines consistently with confidence, not cruelty, people start to notice. The rude ones start backing off. The silent ones start respecting you more. And the most important person of all, you start feeling lighter, freer, stronger. Because every time you choose grace over rage, clarity over chaos, and dignity over defensiveness, you're not just responding to the moment. You're reshaping the way people experience you. And that ripple effect, it goes far, sometimes even farther than the insult itself. You have that power, always have. And now you've got the words too. So the next time someone tries to rattle you, tries to poke or provoke, remember you're not obligated to react. You're only obligated to protect your peace. And there's one final piece I want to share with you. A quiet truth that makes all of this click into place. It's about what truly happens inside us when we stop fighting for our worth and start living like it's already known. Because here's what I've come to realize, and maybe you felt this too. So much of our stress, our regret, even our sadness over the years didn't come from people treating us badly just once. It came from all those little moments when we let it slide, when we stayed quiet to keep the peace, when we explained ourselves to people who had already made up their minds, when we accepted being disrespected just to avoid making things awkward. But peace isn't passive. It's not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of strength. It's that quiet knowing deep in your bones that you're allowed to take up space in this world. That you don't need to earn respect by sacrificing your self-worth. And you certainly don't need to let someone's bad attitude dim your light. So what really happens when you start using these comebacks? Not to hurt, but to heal your own boundaries. You stop carrying other people's emotions on your shoulders. You stop over-explaining, overthinking, and over-apologizing. You stop waiting for the perfect time to stand up for yourself because you realize the perfect time is always now. And something beautiful starts to unfold. People begin treating you differently. Not because they've changed, but because you have. Because the energy you bring when you say, "This conversation was over before it even started," or, "Thanks for your input, I'll forget it immediately," is the energy of someone who refuses to be baited, bruised, or bulldozed. I once had someone, let's call him Tony, try to push me into an argument at a senior center meeting. He didn't agree with an idea I had about a small event we were planning. And instead of giving constructive feedback, he got loud, dismissive, tried to make it personal. In the past, I might have tried to win him over, tried to explain, maybe even snapped back, but this time I just looked at him and said, "Tony, you seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. Keep it up if you'd like." He froze. A few people chuckled under their breath. The tension broke and I went right back to my point. And just like that, the power shifted. It's not about embarrassing someone. It's not even about winning the moment. It's about holding your center, letting the world know you're not here to be disrespected. Now, this might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you were raised in an environment that told you to be the bigger person, to smile through discomfort, to avoid confrontation at all costs. But I'm here to tell you there's nothing wrong with being kind and clear. Kindness without boundaries is people-pleasing. But kindness with strength, that's self-respect. And you deserve that. You deserve to walk into any room knowing that you don't have to prove yourself to anyone, that your life, your experience, your time, all have value, whether someone else sees it or not. And if someone decides to ignore that truth, if they try to belittle you, mock you, or challenge your dignity, let them. Let them expose who they are while you quietly show them who you've become. Because the older we get, the more precious our time becomes. The more we realize we're not here to entertain other people's insecurities. We're here to live fully, peacefully, and truthfully. And sometimes that means ending the conversation before it begins. Sometimes that means walking away without a single ounce of guilt. Sometimes it means smiling and saying, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." So, let me leave you with this. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to argue to make your point. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone who can't already see it. Your words, when chosen with calm clarity, are more powerful than any insult ever thrown at you. And your silence, when it comes from self-respect, is louder than any shout. If you've ever struggled to find the right thing to say in the face of rudeness, I hope now you feel a little more prepared, a little more confident, a little more rooted in the knowledge that your dignity doesn't have to bend just because someone else can't stand tall. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you'll share in the comments if you've ever used one of these responses, or if you have your own that you'd like to teach the rest of us. Let's build each other up one comeback at a time. And if this message resonated with you, if it made you smile or made you feel seen, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. We've got more real talk, more wisdom, and more heart-to-heart conversations ahead. Because here's to living your best life at any age and never letting rudeness define your story. You've earned your peace. Keep it.